All right, so we are going deep into AI today, especially if you are new to this whole thing and getting ready for that AI fundamentals exam. We're going to be looking at some really cool Microsoft's Learn articles, stuff about responsible AI, Azure AI services, all that good stuff. You know the goal here. We want to make sure that you really get it. Not just the basics, but also, walk away with some of those aha moments to help you ace that exam and just get excited about AI.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much to cover. It's really fascinating. AI is really changing everything in ways that we couldn't have imagined just a few years ago.
So let's start with the most basic question. What is AI?
That's a great question. Because it's more than just a buzzword, right? Microsoft actually defines it as systems that can sense, learn, reason, and act. Think about it this way. AI is making it possible for machines to do things that, normally need human intelligence. Things like understanding language, recognizing patterns, making decisions, even solving problems.
So it's not just robots taking over the world.
Not exactly, although they do have this one example in an article about robots, like providing companionship to older adults, which is pretty interesting. But, that's just one example. AI is being used to solve all sorts of real-world problems, and it's really improving people's lives.
I love that example. It shows how AI can be like a force for good,
Absolutely. But, like with any powerful technology, it's super important to use it responsibly, and that's where the idea of responsible AI comes in.
Okay, let's talk about that. What does it mean to develop and use AI in a responsible way?
So it's all about making sure that AI systems are developed and used in a way that aligns with, our ethical principles and our values as a society. Microsoft actually lays out 6 key principles for responsible AI: fairness, reliability, and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. And, these principles are really important for building trust and making sure that AI benefits everyone.
Okay, 6 principles. Got it. Let's break those down a bit, starting with fairness. What does that even mean in the context of AI?
So fairness basically means that AI systems should treat everyone equally. And, avoid creating or perpetuating biases. Let's say, for instance, you're developing an AI system to screen job applicants. You really need to make sure that the system doesn't discriminate against candidates based on things like race, gender, or age.
That makes perfect sense.
Uh-huh.
AI should be used to create a level playing field, not make things less fair.
Exactly. And then you have reliability and safety, which are obviously also super important. Reliability basically means that AI systems should perform consistently and as expected. Imagine a self-driving car. You need to be absolutely confident that it will operate safely and reliably in all sorts of conditions. Safety is about making sure that AI systems don't pose risks to people or property.
So fairness, reliability, and safety are the first 3. What about privacy and security? We hear so much about data breaches these days. How does that all relate to AI?
It's definitely a big concern. AI systems often rely on huge amounts of data, and it's crucial to protect that data from unauthorized access and misuse. Privacy means that people have control over their own data and how it's used. Security involves putting measures in place to safeguard data from breaches and attacks.
So if an AI system is using my personal data, I need to know that it's being handled in a responsible and safe way. What's next?
Right. So then you have inclusiveness. This principle is all about designing AI systems to benefit everyone and avoid excluding or marginalizing certain groups. For example, if you are developing an AI-powered virtual assistant, it should be accessible to people with disabilities and be able to understand different languages and accents.
So inclusiveness is about making AI accessible and beneficial to the widest possible range of people.
Exactly. And then we have transparency. Transparency is basically about understanding how AI systems work and how they make decisions. You should be able to explain the logic behind an AI's output, especially when those decisions have big consequences. If an AI system is denying loan applications, you need to understand why and make sure the process is fair.
It seems like transparency is so crucial for building trust in AI.
Right, exactly. Okay, and then the final principle is accountability. This one emphasizes that those who develop and use AI systems must be responsible for what they do and the potential impact of their actions. If an AI system causes harm or makes a mistake, there needs to be a way to address the issue and hold the right people accountable.
So accountability is like the safety net, making sure there are consequences for irresponsible AI development.
Yes, exactly. These 6 principles provide a really solid framework for ethical and responsible AI development. It's about creating AI systems that align with human values and ultimately benefit society as a whole.
Okay, so we've covered the ethical groundwork. Now let's get into the practical stuff. We mentioned Azure AI services earlier. Can you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah. So Azure AI services are basically cloud-based tools provided by Microsoft that make it much easier to build and deploy AI solutions. Think of it like a toolbox full of ready-made components and services. You can use them to create your own AI applications, even if you don't have a super deep understanding of AI algorithms or coding.
So you're saying you don't need to be an AI expert to start building with AI.
Exactly. And one of the services I found particularly interesting, especially in the context of responsible AI, is Azure AI Content Safety. It's designed to help you detect and moderate harmful content in online platforms so you can make the digital world a safer place.
That's fantastic. Are there other Azure AI services that you think are important, especially for someone who's preparing for the AI fundamentals exam?
Yeah, definitely. One is the Responsible AI Dashboard for Azure Machine Learning. Remember how we talked about the importance of transparency and fairness? Well, this dashboard gives you tools to actually assess your AI models for any potential biases and understand how they're making decisions.
So like a watchdog built right into your AI projects. It seems like Microsoft is really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to building responsibility into their AI tools.
They are. They even provide these things called transparency notes for their services, which explain how they work and what data they use, so that's great. So you're not only getting really powerful tools, but you're also getting the guidance to use them responsibly.
This is really exciting stuff. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Remember, you're on a mission here to conquer that AI fundamentals exam.
Yeah.
So how does all of this connect to the exam?
Right. Well, the exam covers three main areas. You have to understand basic AI concepts, the basics of machine learning, and of course, Azure AI services. We've already talked about the first and third, and we'll dive into machine learning a bit later.
Perfect. So you are already well on your way to acing that exam. We've covered a lot of ground. From defining AI and understanding what responsible AI is all about to getting a glimpse of some of the tools available in Azure AI services, you are definitely building a solid foundation for your AI journey.
You are. And next, we'll get into machine learning, which is like the engine that powers a lot of these AI solutions. It's going to get even more interesting.
Oh, wait.
Welcome back. So now it's time to demystify the world of machine learning. It's a field that's really driving some of the most amazing advances in AI.
Okay, let's do this. I have to admit, I've heard a lot about machine learning, but I'm still not totally clear on what it is or how it actually works.
Sure. Well, you can think of machine learning as the process of teaching computers to learn from data without actually having to program them, step by step. Instead of giving the computer very specific instructions, we just feed it data and kind of let it figure out patterns and insights on its own.
So it's like giving a computer a giant puzzle and letting it figure out how to put all the pieces together.
Exactly. It's like that. We give the computer these things called algorithms, which are like sets of rules or instructions, and then we feed it tons of data. The algorithms, they analyze the data, identify patterns, and use those patterns to make predictions or decisions.
That sounds really powerful. What are some real-world examples of how machine learning is actually being used?
Oh, it's everywhere these days. Like, it's used to personalize the recommendations you get on streaming services, filter out all the spam from your inbox, detect fraudulent transactions on your credit card, even power those voice assistants on your smartphone.
Wow, I had no idea machine learning was behind so many things I use every day. So how does it actually work? What are the different types of machine learning?
There are so many different types, but let's just focus on the three most common: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. They all have their own strengths and are used for different types of tasks.
Okay, let's start with supervised learning. What is that?
Imagine you're teaching a kid, like a small child, to recognize different types of fruit. You show them an apple, and you're like, this is an apple. Then you show them a banana, this is the banana. And you keep doing this, showing them lots of different fruits and giving them the names. Supervised learning is very similar.
So you're basically supervising the computer's learning by providing it with what? Labeled data, like data that already have the right answers.
Yes, exactly. We feed the algorithm data that's already been labeled, which means each data point is tagged with the correct output. So the algorithm uses that labeled data to predict what the output should be for new data, data it hasn't seen before.
Can you give an example of supervised learning in the real world?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to build a system that can automatically classify emails as spam or not spam. So you give it thousands of emails that are already tagged as either spam or not spam. The algorithm will then analyze those emails and learn to identify patterns that distinguish spam from regular emails. Once it's been trained, it can then classify new emails, emails it hasn't seen before, with a pretty high degree of accuracy.
That makes sense. It's like teaching the computer to recognize spam by showing it a lot of examples. What about unsupervised learning? How can a computer learn if there's no supervisor to guide it?
Well, unsupervised learning is more about exploration and discovery. It's like giving that same child a basket full of different objects and asking them to sort the objects into different groups, like based on how similar they are. The child might, for instance, group objects by color, shape, or size, without being told what criteria to use.
So in unsupervised learning, the data isn't labeled, and the algorithm has to find patterns and relationships in the data all on its own.
Exactly. It's all about exploring the data, finding hidden structures, and grouping together data points that are similar. It's often used for things like customer segmentation, anomaly detection, and reducing the complexity of data.
Got it. Can you give me a real-world example of unsupervised learning?
Yeah, of course. Let's say you're a retailer, and you have this massive database of customer purchase history. You could use an unsupervised learning algorithm to analyze that data and figure out which groups of customers have similar buying habits. And then that information could be used for things like creating targeted marketing campaigns or personalizing product recommendations.
So instead of telling the algorithm what to look for, you're just letting it discover these customer segments on its own.
Pretty much. Okay, so we've covered supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Now let's move on to reinforcement learning. What makes that different?
Yeah, what is that?
Reinforcement learning is all about learning through trial and error. It's kind of like how animals learn, through rewards and punishments.
Oh, so it's like training a dog with treats.
Yeah, exactly. So in reinforcement learning, you have an agent, and it interacts with this environment and takes actions. And then based on what happens as a result of those actions, it receives feedback, either rewards or penalties. So the agent's goal is to learn a way of behaving, a policy that maximizes its rewards over time.
Can you give me an example of reinforcement learning in action?
One of the most famous examples is AlphaGo, that AI system developed by Google DeepMind, the one that beat a world champion Go player. AlphaGo learned to play Go by playing millions of games against itself and getting rewards for winning moves and penalties for losing moves. And through that process of trial and error, it eventually was able to master the game at like a superhuman level.
So it's like the computer's figuring out the best strategy through practice, just like a human would.
Exactly. Reinforcement learning is being used in all sorts of things these days, like robotics, where robots can learn to perform tasks in the real world by interacting with their environment and getting feedback. And it's also being applied in areas like autonomous driving, resource management, and even personalized medicine.
Okay, my brain is officially full. So many different ways to teach computers how to learn. But are there any challenges or limitations to machine learning? It can't all be perfect, right?
You're right. It's not all sunshine and roses. Machine learning is really powerful, but it does have its challenges. One of the biggest ones is making sure that the models are fair and unbiased, because if the data you use to train a model is biased, then the model itself will likely be biased too.
So it all goes back to the data.
Exactly. Data quality and diversity are essential if you want to build AI systems that are responsible and fair. Another big challenge is explainability. Sometimes it can be hard to understand why a machine learning model makes a specific prediction, especially with those really complex models like deep neural networks.
So it's like the AI is making decisions, but we don't always know why.
It's a bit like that, yeah. And it's an area of really active research. As AI gets more and more integrated into our lives, it's super important to figure out how to make these systems more transparent, more explainable.
Where this deep dive into machine learning has definitely been eye-opening. I feel much more equipped to deal with those machine learning concepts on the exam. What's up next?
All right, we're back for the last part of our AI deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much already about responsible AI, machine learning. It's been a lot.
It has. And now it's time to bring it all together, By zeroing in on those Azure AI services we talked about earlier. Remember, those are key if you want to ace that AI fundamentals exam.
Okay, let's refresh my memory a bit. What were Azure AI services all about again?
So basically, they're like a toolkit for building AI solutions. Even if you're not like a coding expert or an AI guru, they're these cloud-based services that Microsoft provides. And they have all these pre-built components and APIs, which makes it so much easier to develop and deploy AI applications. Right? It's like having a whole team of AI specialists ready to help you create cool stuff. We talked about Azure AI Content Safety, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a super useful service for, detecting and moderating content online to make sure it's not harmful, especially for platforms that have a lot of user-generated content, like social media or online forums. It's all about making the internet a safer, more positive place.
That's really cool. Using technology to fight the bad stuff on the internet. What other Azure AI services are important for the exam?
Azure Cognitive Services is another big one. It's this collection of pre-trained AI models that you can use for a bunch of different things, like analyzing text and images, understanding speech, even translating languages.
Wait, pre-trained models, does that mean like someone else has already trained them and I can just use them?
Exactly. It's like having this whole library of AI knowledge at your fingertips. You don't have to build everything from scratch.
Could you give me an example of how I could use Azure Cognitive Services?
Sure. Let's say you want to build a chatbot for your website, for customer service. You could use Azure Cognitive Services to make the chatbot understand natural language, what people are typing, and analyze customer sentiment so it knows if they're happy or upset. And then it can give them personalized responses.
That's a great example. It's like AI is making customer service so much better. So we've got content safety and cognitive services. What else is there?
Don't forget about Azure Machine Learning. That one's really important. Remember we were talking about how machine learning is like the brains behind a lot of AI? Well, Azure Machine Learning is a cloud-based platform. It basically makes it way easier to build, train, and deploy your own custom machine learning models.
So it's like a virtual lab for data scientists, right? Where they can play around with different algorithms and build all sorts of cool AI stuff.
Yeah, it's like that. It's this collaborative space where you can work with data, try out different algorithms, build, train, and deploy models all in one place. And it has features for, like, everyone, whether you're just starting out or you're a total pro.
This is amazing. Building AI doesn't seem as scary as I thought.
See, that's the thing about Azure AI services. Anyone can use them. It doesn't matter what your background is. They give you the power to use AI and, make your ideas a reality.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I've gone from knowing almost nothing about AI to having a pretty good understanding in no time compared for that AI fundamentals exam.
Yeah.
And to see where this whole AI thing takes me.
That's awesome. Just remember, learning about AI never really stops. The more you learn, the more there is to discover. But as you go deeper, always keep in mind those responsible AI principles we talked about. Making sure that AI systems are fair, reliable, secure, inclusive, transparent, and accountable is so important. It's the only way to make sure that AI benefits everyone.
You're so right. Responsible AI is essential. We want to build a better future with AI. I'm really excited to see what we can create with it.